administration. And it's titled The Green Party. There are several significant statements in NASA's Green Party material. If you have it with you, one under the headline, it says,
not that we're the biggest NASA fans, but they do know a little something.
But under Green Power, it says plants, let me read it myself and say exactly, but it says power from plants have changed the world. Now, it was a long time ago I told you to put a green light at your house, and then, I understand these things seem kind of irrelevant because you've been experiencing years and years of religion, which, basically is kind of irrelevant. Nothing ever happens. But I said, consider that. Powerful plants have changed the world is what it says there. And in the very first paragraph, it says scientists are shedding light on the biggest power booster on our planet. And what NASA is saying is that the biggest power booster on our planet is light from above that touches chlorophyll and hemoglobin. Chlorophyll in plants, hemoglobin in human beings. Green light. Okay? We learned from this material that we had given out earlier that chlorophyll converts light energy into something called ATP. It's a large scientific name. We won't get into that. But ATP is in both plants and human beings. Actually, it is the hemoglobin in humans, which is complementary to chlorophyll in plants. ATP is the source of energy for living cells in plants and in humans and in animals. And ATP is a direct result of light from above interacting with either chlorophyll or hemoglobin, interacting with green. So it's green light, which is actually responsible for ATP. And ATP is the immediate source of energy for muscle contraction. In other words, you couldn't move unless there's ATP, and there's no ATP unless there's green light interacting with the green of the earth. So the hema group in humans is related to the chlorophyll in plants, and through light touching both, there is the source of energy for all life. And that's what's very interesting. But something important that we have to go over again is on page 114 of this material. It's in paragraph 3, and it's talking about green light. It says, this provides the plant food in the form of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, the building blocks of life. And now for today, what I want you to do is keep in mind this article, and that nucleic acid is DNA. Green light, DNA. Who said there's a connection? The National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Very, very important. Keep in mind that because it's going to be important, very important later as we get into this. On page 114B, talking again about green light, in paragraph 1, it says, without, this is the last line of paragraph 1, without the photosystem. Now, the photosystem is NASA's term for the green light. Without the photosystem, molecules, life as we know it, would cease to exist.
Interesting word they chose to use, the photo, whatever.
So how important is green light? Without it, there's none of anybody. Okay. Now, again, very important for where we're going. On page 114C, the last paragraph, just as in human cells, the photosystem proteins, that's the green light, inside a plant cell are translated from amino acids. These amino acids are in turn translated from the complex array of nucleic acids in DNA. The description of the molecular code reads like an encrypted message. Okay? Now, what's interesting about that is the nucleic acid is the product of green light. The green light is an angle of light. It's a photon, which the Bible says is an angel of light. The angle of light as a photon is a messenger particle. The angel in the Bible is a messenger. And so here now we find that there's a direct connection between the angle of light, or the messenger, and an encrypted message called DNA. There's a direct connection. NASA has given us a direct connection. In other words, there could be no DNA unless there's light interacting with hema and chlorophyll. There can be no DNA unless there's an angle of light, and the angle of light is the messenger, and we find out that the DNA is an encrypted message. And that's what it says in your article from NASA in the very last line. A description of the molecular code reads like an encrypted message. So you see how everything is conveyed in symbols. Even you, it's an encrypted, you're an encrypted, there's a coded message inside of you. Not a plain, there's nothing written on your head or anything. It's all written in cosmic code, really. And so not only inside of you is there an encrypted message that we call DNA. Jesus never spoke but in a symbol. That's what the Bible says. The Bible is allegorical. That's what the Bible says. The myths and the ancient stories. And NASA tells us there's an intelligent message conveyed to all living things in a molecular code which reads like an encrypted message. Okay. Isn't it encrypted? You know what an encrypted message is? It's code. It's like Morse code, you know. Well, that's what it is. Now, talking again about green and all this business, let me go over once again the Bible scriptures, and you don't have to. You can take my words in the Bible. Job 8:16. He is green before the sun, and his branch shoots forth in his garden. Job 15:31, let not him that is deceived trust in vanity, for vanity shall be his recompense. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. Psalm 23, the one that everybody knows. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. It's not talking about cow pastures. It's not talking about what you think is a pasture. It's talking about something much more significant. What? Song of Solomon 1:16, behold, you are fair, my beloved, yes, pleasant. Also, our bed is green. Revelation 9:4, and it was commanded them, that's talking about the angels, that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads, which is the pineal gland. There's a book called The Power of Color, and it's written by Dr. Morton Walker. And he speaks of green from a metaphysical perspective.
I think color in the light spectrum in particular, excuse me, are such like cool things.
And he says,
because we can see like barely any of it light-wise.
Says about it, emerald green is often the...
And I love minerals. I just watched a thing on the Tucson Minerals show. So anyway.
symbol of hope and growth, and is used this way in many Christian paintings. To Muslims, green is a sacred color symbolizing immortality. The Buddha is often painted against a green background to denote the permanent life behind all of man's temporary incarnations. And emerald green returns us to the Bible because it says in Revelation 4:2, I was in the Spirit, there was a throne, and one was sitting on the throne, and he that sat upon the throne like a jasper, and there was a rainbow about the throne like unto an emerald, green light. And then, of course, you have page 112 of the material I gave you a couple of weeks ago. The scientist at NASA who has a flying prototype of a ship that flies by laser. And if you look at page 112, what I'm telling you is not coming from New Age stuff. It comes from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and Space Science News. This ship flies on laser power. And in the 5th paragraph, if you look at page 112 of your stuff, in the 5th paragraph, the scientist says, my goal has been to cut the cost of getting to space by a factor of 1,000 using a system that is completely green. Now, looking down above you right now from space is supernova 1987A, which you have seen. The center eye of supernova 1987A is green. And it's on fire now.
I don't know why that was.
If you look in the color spectrum, the center of the color spectrum is the color green. Now, I showed you a few weeks ago a scientific diagram showing the human eye, and the human eye senses color in 3 spectrums, and the top one is red, the bottom one is blue, and the center that your eye picks up is green. Kabbalists, those who studied the ancient Kabbalah, stated the pathway to God was the center, and they considered green that pathway because it is the center of the light spectrum. Right now you're living in the Aquarian age, and the ruling planet of the Aquarian age is Uranus. What makes it unusual is that Uranus spins on its side. It doesn't spin up and down, it spins like this, sideways. And so the electromagnetic fields that come from it are chaotic, and they cause the exact chaos that Al was talking about. And Uranus is the green planet. So, I mean, how can all these coincidences exist? They're not coincidences. But, you know, it's like everything else on the earth, very few people pay attention to it. So now let's try to fit the puzzle together. You got all of this talking about green, 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 green. How in the world does it all work? And does it work? I say meditation. Al says, well, you know, like we said, you observe yourself, you watch yourself. And I tell you, well, when you watch yourself, the observation causes the light wave which is inside the brain to collapse to a particle, which then puts you into a harmony with the universe and you can receive. How is that possible? I mean, that's ridiculous. How could it possibly be? How could you send healing or whatever to somebody else? How could you receive anything from, you know, sitting there listening to some gongs or something? Bong, 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 when you're going to harmonize with the universe? How is this possible? I mean, what happens inside of your head? Where would the message come from? Nobody's talking to you. How would you know? So, you know, how could it even remotely provide enlightenment to people? And to me, if you can't explain it, I don't want to hear it. I think it's stupid. Yeah. I think all of this stuff that we've done all of our lives, we're going to churches, is absolutely stupid because we don't know what we're there for. We just show up. Because if you don't, your parents or your family get mad at you. Basically. But nobody knows what they're there for. Everybody sits there and goes through all of these different things, and there's one thing. It's because nobody knows. They say, well, maybe after we die, maybe I'll go to some place and I'll get an apartment or a split-level house. There's no reason to be. Because there is no way to logically explain anything. And it's the same way here with meditation. If I tell you you collapse the wave, well, we can prove that because that's quantum physics. But then how do you know anything happened? How is something good going to happen out of it? Now, it is important as we consider this to recall that in that NASA article that I gave you last week called The Green Party, let's just look one more time because you're going to hear today from an anthropologist by the name of Dr. Jeremy Narby. And what you're going to hear from him is critical as we consider what NASA says. And it's once again, if you look at page 114C, at the bottom of the page, and I read it before, but I read it again because it's important. Just as in human cells, the photosystem, that's the green light, proteins, light, green. Let's put that together. Green, light, okay? inside a plant cell are translated from amino acids. Amino acids have a 20-letter alphabet for each of the 20 naturally occurring amino acids. These acids are in turn translated from the complex array of nucleic acids in DNA codes as the letters A, G, T, C. A description of the molecular code reads like an encrypted message. So the message is connected to the green light.
There you go.
Now, the only, that's not a new age idea. That's coming from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And I think they're competent scientific people to tell us that. So you can, I would trust them. I trust no priests, ministers, rabbis, religious people, but you can trust, I believe, the NSA. Yes, Debbie?
This could be wrong, so maybe Albert can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the code in your body, it's transferred through your body and read through your body by a type of RNA called messenger RNA.
Okay. Debbie said that there's something in the body that is called messenger RNA that translates the code.
Delivers the message.
Okay.
The code throughout your whole body.
All right. Very good. So once again, then it would fit in right with what they're talking about here, and then that would match with what you're saying. So somehow, now I don't know how. Debbie, when she completes all of her studies, can come back and explain. I don't know. I'll never know how. But somehow, light entering the Earth on an angle, a messenger particle, a photon, angles of light, messenger particles, somehow NASA finds that as this light touches chlorophyll and humans, it sets up a complex activity from amino acids into DNA, and the encrypted intelligent message is given to all living things. An intelligent message. I mean, the cat gets an intelligent message depending on...
That's absolutely crazy what he just said. Let's hear it again. 15 seconds.
Humans, it sets up a complex activity from amino acids into DNA, and the encrypted intelligent message is given to all living things. An intelligent message. I mean, the cat gets an intelligent message depending on what the cat needs. The elephant gets an encrypted message depending on what the elephant needs. You and I get an encrypted message depending on what we need. So the message comes from angles of light, from green light. Now, there was a document that came out in the April to July 1999 Science Review, and there...
Which goes to show, because this says it's like 2 years old, but there's no way. There's no way. And if he's referring to 1999, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's more probably that time period.
There was a fellow by the name of Dr. Jeremy Narby. And Jeremy Narby is an anthropologist who was baccalaureate, received his laureate degrees and all this from Stanford University. Extremely prestigious, extremely scientific, not given to any hocus pocus or any of this stuff. But anyhow, this is what he says. The spirits one sees in hallucinations are made of their own language like DNA. And then he asks a question, is DNA linked to the cosmic serpents from around the world?
Wow.
Now this gets very interesting, and I'll tell you why. It started out in 1984. Dr. Narby was in a place called Curishari in the Peruvian Amazon Valley, in the middle of the jungle. That's what these anthropologists do, But he was struck by something that changed his whole approach. He was a very, very scientific, pragmatic guy. As he sat around the fire in the middle of the jungle, he sat around with this shaman, bushman, and he was talking to this guy. And this guy said that most diseases he could cure. He said he learned about the medicinal properties of plants by drinking a hallucinogenic brew. So you can say, Narby sitting there listening to this guy. The guy said, "Yeah, I can heal all this stuff." How do you understand all of these things? Oh, I drink this stuff. He claimed he could cure the bite of a deadly snake, but he said one learns these things by drinking ayahuasca, Ayahuasca. And Dr. Narby said when he said that to me, he wasn't smiling. Now, the question that was spinning around in Narby's head was, did the information about all of this healing and understanding the molecular structure of these things, did the information come from the brain as the result of the hallucination? Or was the hallucination actually a message from the plant?
I love that they just brought that into context. Let's continue.
In other words, was the DNA from the plant conversing with the DNA in the brain?
Why wouldn't it be? It would have to be.
Now remember, Dr. Narby has a doctorate in anthropology from Stanford University. It's interesting, isn't it, when you hear this, considering the green light and considering Dr. Narby's work now coming out with saying it could very well be that plants can talk intelligently to human beings through DNA. And you're taking herbs and all of this new stuff to get healed. In 1999, doctors are into alternative medicine and giving out all kinds of greens from the earth and herbs and all of these things. I mean, basically, what is getting popular in this very advanced scientific country is the very same stuff that this guy in the middle of the Amazon jungle has been giving out to people for years.
And look at it. Okay, so he just said it's 1999. In this time period, it's 2024 right now, and ayahuasca is like has been made to be like some, just go for the weekend and do it type trip, which I don't think it should be necessarily that way, because it's just like a whole bandwagon now of people that probably don't necessarily need to be taking it. But anyway.
But how did he find out about it? Healing agencies that actually come from green light. This is what Narby had to deal with. People living in the middle of the Amazon forest insisted that their extensive botanic knowledge of healing came from plant-induced hallucinations.
I'm just going to guess that he's going to say that the plant told them what plants to ingest and what they do.
And Narby then took off on his career of saying, how in the world could this possibly be true? Isn't it reminiscent of the question that we talked about of Plato and Pythagoras and all of these guys? How could people thousands of years ago know about quantum physics, electrons, and nuclear energy? Who taught them? And here Dr. Narby asks, how could shamans in the middle of the Amazon jungle know about the molecular properties in plants and the art of combining them? Who told them? Where did they get it from?
No encyclopedia.
How is it possible?
Over there.
And see, of course, we look at them and say, well, we're the civilized people. We have drugs. Right. They're, bush people. They don't know. Yeah. But now suddenly we're starting to use the same thing he was using. Now listen to the science involved here. What do you think? People in the middle of the jungle. No schools, no universities, no medicine, no doctors, no nothing. But this guy sitting around a fire said, what do you got? I'll cure you. Try to consider how these people in the middle of the Amazon jungle could do this. The green plant here is cure you. Try to consider how these people in the middle of the Amazon jungle could do this. The green plant here is called ayahuasca, Ayahuasca.